Welcome to this lesson, Solidity Programming, presented by Coding Bootcamps. This is the Solidity contract and functions. We've covered this material, and we've covered this material. So far we have learned about data in Solidity, integers, strings, booleans. We have also learned about how we use loops. We have learned about data structures, and now we're going to talk about functions. So functions have visibility. Public functions are visible and can be called by other functions or by another contract, by the contract interface. Internal functions can only be called from within their own contract. Private functions can be called by other functions within their own contract and cannot be called by other contracts. And external functions can be called from other contracts. And we can see here some examples. Here is a function that is public. It's view. We'll talk about view. And it returns, in this case, it takes a string and it takes two strings, and you can see here what it returns. This particular function accepts two strings and does something, and we have a private function here, and we have a public function here that does some setting of an integer, and you can see here we have a function that's declared as external. And we use, in this case, Remax here to work with the data that is managed by our functions. So Solidity supports calling functions from other functions. So a function call can have input parameters. A function call may or may not return data. So we can see here, we have a function here. We can see the curly braces that is calling the user count data. And we can see here how it's actually used. You can see here user count. This function is down here. We can see that function add user is actually calling user count. Functions can be called from other contracts. That is possible. So we have this contract user base here, and it is able to call a contract from, it's able to call from another contract. However, that contract must be instantiated. So we can see here that it is using the new, so to declare a new contract within a contract. So this whole data right here is actually another contract. Inheritance. So similar to C++, similar to Java, Solidity supports inheritance. And inheritance between contracts is implemented by the is keyword. So inheritance is defined in the function header, and multiple inheritance is supported. So we can see here, if we look closely, we can see, oh, okay, user base is basic data. So the user base is inheriting basic data. So everything we see now in basic data is available here in user base, plus whatever we define or declare for user base. So user base is almost a superset of basic data. And we can see over here, when we're running this contract, we can see how the data is updated with all of the contracts. Pure functions and view functions. So determinism is a big part of blockchain programming. So deterministic functions return the same value every time. And that's very important when we talk about blockchain. So it's key in blockchains. So with pure functions, the idea here is they always return the same value every time. Pure functions and view functions. And we can see here examples of pure when a function can be declared as pure, you will actually get reminded or get a will actually, Solidity will actually make some recommendations to us that functions can be declared as pure. Pure functions can only interact with other pure functions or view functions. So we see here that there is a function here that is interacting with pure, and it doesn't work until we declare this function here, test P, has to be declared as pure before they will all work together within the same contract. And there are function modifiers. So function modifiers are almost testing for certain conditions before they will run. So only admin user, we can see this one here. So a user has to be able to fit into the role of an admin before a particular function will work. There's also functions that have to do with a certain time. So if that time has not been reached yet, the function cannot be called. So function modifiers look for particular conditions. Constructors. Constructors are the first functions to be run when a contract is initialized. So these functions are optional, and we can actually initialize and essentially set up what is existing as soon as we initialize or compile the contract. So we can see here, there is an example here where the wallet is declared as my wallet. There are fallback functions. With fallback functions, it doesn't have a name. So anything that calls the fallback function will run or set a variable, and a fallback function must have external visibility. We can also overload functions. So you can have several functions within the same contract that are the same name. And the way that Solidity knows which contract we are calling is because of the way the parameters are set up. So we see add user here, a function called add user, accepts 2 string parameters, where there's another one, add user, accepts no parameters. So the way that we actually call the function will determine which one of these functions will actually be executed in the contract. So here is our exercise. So we can paste, this goes over these 2 pages. So let's take a quick look at this contract. So we can see it here already in my remix environment. A few things we need to do first. There's a step 1 here to remove the comment. The parts of this contract are commented out. So remove the comment here. Comment indicators, or the block comments. So we can see that now this basic data is available. And notice here, user base, the is keyword is here, meaning that this contract, user base, inherits from basic data. So and we could actually compile this without but we get some warnings, so. And let's just check on these warnings. That looks okay so far. What we can do is remove these comments, and that will add that inheritance in. Oh, and then we see a step 3 here. So notice here on step 3 that we are actually calling a function from another contract, hold data. Where is that? Oh, that looks like it's up in this contract here. Notice we have contract hold data, contract basic data. So we are going into this contract, user base, which is calling the functions from another contract. And we can see here the new keyword is being, so HD is going to be, it's going to have all of the functionality of contract hold data, which is up here. And we see step 4, remove these, okay? And then we see step 5 is to remove the slashes which are commenting out. So if we remove all of these and we recompile, recompile, then we are ready to run. Now, we've been talking about something important. So we have one Solidity file with many contracts. So notice here, now we have many contracts here. So it's important that you look at the way the exercise needs to be run. So you need to look at your learning materials to determine which contract to use at this time. And let's go back here. So in summary, we talked about smart contracts and functions, passing and returning data. We talked about smart contract function visibility, either public, private, etc. Calling and declaring functions, inheritance, pure and view functions, function modifiers based on times, owners, other criteria, constructors, and overloading functions. And please look at these additional resources. And if you require more training, please check your training materials. In the next section, we'll be talking about actually making payments and transactions.